Medcity's IELTS Speaking Feedback Challenge. Here is an opportunity for you to participate in the feedback challenge. You can evaluate the candidate's performance and tell us what score he or she might get. This is a great chance for you to observe, participate, and learn on how to improve your IELTS speaking skills. Use this to grow. All you need to do is send us your evaluation and score as comments below this video. This is a speaking test of the International English Language Testing System taking place on Tuesday, the 23rd of August at Medcity International Academy. The center number is 8945. The candidate is Shyamlal Punnon and the candidate number is 2160. The examiner is Sangeeta Gopi and the examiner number is 6542. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell me your full name, please?
Of course. My full name is Shyamlal Punnon.
Alright, and what should I call you?
Please just call me Shyam.
Right, Shyam, can you show me your identification card?
Of course. Here it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you work or are you a student?
I work as a senior marketing officer with a large multinational company based in the southeast of Asia.
Okay. And where are you from?
I am from South India, specifically from a district called Kannur in Kerala.
All right. So let's move on to the first part of speaking. Shyam, I'm going to ask you questions regarding crowded places. What places do you think are often crowded?
Well, I think that the places that provide entertainment on a massive scale, those are the ones that are often very crowded. Places like cinema theaters and football stadiums are often packed with people looking for their kind of entertainment.
Right. And when was the last time you were in a crowded place?
If I recall right, it was just a few weeks back when I went out for a movie. It was called Thor: Love and Thunder. When I arrived, I saw a lot of people there. They were not all looking to get into the same room as me because Thor wasn't the only showing. It was just packed completely.
All right. And how do you feel when you're in a crowded place?
Honestly, I'm not a big fan of crowds. I am not in any way agoraphobic or anything, but crowds tend to have a negative influence on me, so I try to avoid them at all costs.
All right, now I'm going to move on to questions regarding driving.
Okay.
Right? Do you drive often?
Yes, I do drive very often. I'm a big fan of night drive when there are not many people on the road, so I can have a peaceful drive in the night, just listening to music and not worrying about the safety hazards.
And do you have a driver's license?
Yes, I do. I have driver's licenses for two-wheelers and four-wheelers, and this might be a bit shocking, but I'm also hoping to get a license for a private airplane.
All right. Do you want your children to drive in future?
Yes, absolutely. I say that because public transportation is good, but still it is not as effective as owning your own vehicle, which means that if you have one and you have the legal license to drive or use it, then it could be used to transport yourself from one place to another without any hassle, on your own time, on your own accord. So I definitely would want my children to drive in the future.
Right, and at what age are people allowed to drive in your country?
People are allowed to drive from an age of 18 and ride from an age of 16, and by that I mean motorcycles. And I'm a believer that people who are allowed to drive from 16 should be given much more training so that they understand that when they step onto the roads, it is a different game.
And do you think it's difficult to drive a car?
I consider driving a skill-based action, as do many people. So it is difficult for some people to use a car or a motorcycle. So driving is definitely difficult for some people, especially if they're impaired in any way.
All right. We're going to move on to a topic called as island, and I'm going
Okay.
to ask you certain questions based
Okay.
on that. Have you ever been to an island?
No. It's very sad to say, but I have never been to any islands. But if I do get financially stable in the near future, I would definitely be booking a flight ticket straight to a beautiful island.
Are there any islands in your country?
Yes, I think there are a group of islands to the south of India that stand apart from India.
Medcity IELTS app, a complete learning solution. IELTS listening, reading, writing and speaking module lessons with grammar classes and free practice materials. Get over 50 hours of video lessons. Download Medcity IELTS app now. Available on Android and iOS platforms.
And I have never been to these places, but they're really beautiful when you look for them on Google, and maybe I would enjoy a trip there one day.
All right. And would you want to live in an island?
Yes, I would definitely love to live on an island. I've seen so many movies with islands and I could only see them on the screens. So one day I do wish that islands are very beautiful places to have isolated living. So I would enjoy that.
All right. And what would you like to do if you go to any island?
I would separate myself from my cell phone, my laptop, any other electronic devices, and just go back to the days when people used to relax and just enjoy the sun and just completely move on to a life when they're not being distracted by all those attentions they have.
All right, Shyam. We're going to move on to part 2 of speaking.
Okay.
So I'll give you a prompt card and you have 1 minute to prepare.
Okay.
You can make notes if you wish to do so. So here is your paper and your pencil.
Okay.
All right. So your preparation time starts now.
Okay.
Alright, so Shyam, that's the end of your preparation time.
Okay.
You now have 2 minutes to speak on the topic and I'll stop you when your time's up, so don't worry.
Okay.
Right? Are you ready?
Absolutely.
Start.
All right. So this is about an argument two of my friends had. Again, if I recall it right, it was back when I was in college around 6 years ago. Two of my friends were arguing about something. Specifically, they were arguing about a celebrity. So my first friend, he was obsessed with celebrities and specifically this one individual. And my other friend, he released a news. Actually brought into my first friend's attention that there was a news that was released about this celebrity. It put this person in a bad light, and my friend was trying to rub it in to the face of my other friend, who was a huge fan of this individual. And there ensued an argument between them, and it was huge. My friend, who was a big fan of the celebrity, he was not willing to think objectively and just taken this news as something fresh and something that has actually happened. And he had to get it over with, that this person was capable of doing something like this. My other friend, he capitalized on the situation. He tried to rub it in as much as he could. And there was a huge argument, and it was not getting anywhere. I was a spectator up until I stepped into this thing, and I reminded them that we were all friends and that we were fighting over something. They were fighting over something that they had no control over, because the celebrity has no idea if they exist or they don't exist, and they're fighting over this like animals. And I stepped in and reminded them that our friendship was valued at given more prestige and valued higher than any relationship they could have with a celebrity. And how I feel about it now, when I think about it, is that it was very enlightening. It was very educational, because I was not under the impression that either of my friends were capable of arguing
Thank you,
like
Shyam.
this.
That's the end of your 2 minutes time.
Okay.
Have you ever had an argument?
Yes, I have had several arguments with so many different people. I still do on occasion.
All right, so now let's move on to part 3 of speaking, right? Do you think arguments are important?
I believe healthy arguments are definitely important. An argument that has a beginning and where the parties involved are able to think objectively and logically, where they're able to come up with the conclusion and able to part ways without feeling like either of them lost. So those arguments are definitely necessary.
Can you think of an example?
Medcity IELTS app, a complete learning solution. IELTS listening, reading, writing and speaking module lessons with grammar classes and free practice materials. Get over 50 hours of video lessons. Download Medcity IELTS app now. Available on Android and iOS platforms.
Yes, I would think of a debate that I've seen on a television, and it was between two people of two different parties. And I didn't believe that they could come to terms on something, but eventually they did, and it was surprising to me, because if they could do that, anybody could do that.
All right. What do family members generally argue about?
Well, family members being family members, they don't usually need any incentive to argue about something, but commonly, if I'm not mistaken, it's usually about what movie to go for or what to have for dinner. It usually starts off at something small, then they just put more fuel into the fire, and the argument starts and it doesn't have any fruitful conclusion. It just goes down a rabbit hole, and everybody involved just goes their separate ways.
Do you think it is easier to have arguments with friends, or is it much easier to have arguments with family members?
I would say it's much easier to have arguments with friends, because friends understand you much more than family members. With family members, even though you are very open, because you know from the very beginning, ever since you were born, your friends are the ones who are kindred to you. And when you expose yourself to them, they don't judge you most of the time. They don't judge you, and they try to level with you. And that kind of trust can only exist between friends.
In your opinion, should people change the way they think when they have arguments?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They should definitely change the way that they think when they have an argument. For some people, they're so close-minded that they don't realize that they don't always have to win. They just have to allow the other person to put the idea into their lap. And if it is true, if it has logic, they should just accept it. So if they don't accept it, they're going to keep on doing what they always do, and it's not good for them.
All right, so do you think when two people argue, should a third person be involved in the settlement?
If it's a healthy or a friendly argument, then I don't think a third person's involvement is necessary at all. If it was somebody arguing with their friend, then they're laughing about it while they're having the argument, and anybody who spectates or anybody who is in the room, they're not under any threat. They're not being harmed in any way, physically or emotionally, then third person shouldn't. But if the spectator has harm coming to him because of this argument, or if the two people involved are going to harm each other, then a third person's involvement is absolutely must.
Have you seen anything, on a similar basis where you can relate Have you seen third person being involved in an argument?
Yes, recently, very recently actually, I saw a video on YouTube. Two people were arguing right next to a bus. I think they were employees of the bus, and they were getting into argument about who was going to transport more passengers or something like that. I don't exactly recall. And they started physically assaulting each other, and there were a lot of people watching. The first person to intervene separated them, and then everybody else joined in when they knew that they could do that.
All right. Do you think you are stubborn?
Absolutely not, is something that I would say if I was to lie to you, but I don't want to lie. I am stubborn when it comes to certain things, as is so many people. If they say that they don't have an ego, if they're not proud, they're obviously lying, because everybody has a soft spot. If somebody were to start poking at them in that soft spot, they would definitely start bursting. And I am just like that. If there is somebody who tries to enforce their idea on me, an idea that I don't believe to be true, and the opposite is the actual truth, then I would definitely lose my patience in a second.
So why do you think people are stubborn and unwilling to change?
Well, it has so much to do with how they ended up in this point in time, because
Well, thank you, Shyam. That's the end of your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
For more such exciting videos, download Medcity IELTS app.